You know how you get practice in something and then you do it without even thinking about it? Yeah, I'm still trying to work on that. Takes a little while for me to make sure to check everything and make sure everything's running right. Got things pulled up. Well, hopefully everybody's having a good day. I didn't have much to go over when it comes to post-debut items. Mostly just kind of wanted to try to see how we could get things started and what kind of process would be the easiest way to start streams out every time. I definitely want to include exercise being a starting point to every stream. Don't have to start with it right now, but eventually it'll be one of those. We'll get things started. We'll just kind of go through our exercises, go through them real quick, then move on to other items. Speaking of which, let's move over to another screen here. One thing I did want to bring up was getting started with going over for like vocabulary words and things, going for a week at a time. Maybe at least like introducing words, trying to use them from time to time. I bet more than anything it's going to become a meme. I've got some other ideas on how to make it more of a fun process rather than just, hey, remember this word, As I had mentioned with the debut before, I kind of wanted to have more of an official term and more of a slang term, phrase, anything like that that you might hear from anybody, whether it be old or new. I just kind of pulled some out of my hat, but I love some references. I think for this one, I think this will fit more appropriately than anything else. Defunct, much like how my streaming career currently is. Not necessarily the no longer existing, but not necessarily functioning at the moment. Another one, I'm not sure how to phrase this. Maybe instead of slang. Urban term. Because Urban Dictionary. Don't know why I had a bit of a brain fart on that one. I'm gonna write that down. And a wonderful urban term, bussin'. It's going something simple. I think with this, it'll kind of give something to pay attention to. Probably have just different words, different things going on every week. Well, what do you think? Maybe I should almost have some way of like placing it somewhere. There's only so many free spaces across in a stream. I've got to sit somewhere. You need interactions. Gotta have the chat. Maybe other references and follows and subscriptions and such. Being able to watch videos. Up over there as well. Being able to have some of the alerts going on. Just seems like there's never enough room. Yeah, honestly, I think it'd be kind of funny. Throughout the week, just try to use defunct and bussin' as much as possible. One of the funnest ways to learn the new terms is just messing around with them, being familiarized with them. I've also thought maybe it'd be kind of interesting to hold some competitions. See if people can remember what words were said when, for which week. Maybe like a monthly process or something. Go back over. What were the 8 terms that we wanted to go over for the week? And if people can remember what they stood for, then maybe they could be put into a raffle for a free gift sub. Something of that sort. But that'll be have to something later. You know, when I actually have access to going through bits and subs, and not entirely sure how that all works until affiliate. Speaking of which, affiliate! 12 out of 50. Just follow. Hopefully the more people that join here, this will be a lot more interesting. Talking to myself and trying to figure out how to do this for 4 hours is going to be interesting. I might have some shorter streams for a little while, just because trying to do 3-4 hours of content talking to myself. Yeah, all to myself. At least I have you here. Hey! It's nice to actually see some names popping up in chat. I won't deny the fact that I'm one of those as well, to where I love to have streams in on the side, watching them as I just go about my business, playing some games before, but oh boy, now I started a streaming career. Here goes my free time. Now I gotta try to produce the content, talk, and keep you guys entertained all in one go, while trying to suppress that dire urge to play those brand new video games that I wanted to play so much. But we'll get to some of that later. As for going back to getting things going, let's see here. I wanted to start up a bit of an exercise routine to try to keep myself in shape as well as everybody watching. So let's not that one. Have to forgive me going through a little bit of scuff here. I'm still figuring out some of these window options. Oh, maybe not that one. Of a direct window. Well, I'm gonna have to figure it out here, but currently I'm trying to set up an internet window. Oh, maybe window capture here. Yes. There we go, that's more of what I want. Let's get this sized over a little appropriately. Alright, maybe I'll switch over to a better screen than this one. Let's take this. Let's move over here. I think that's a little bit better. I think that still might be a little bit big. It's a little better. We'll work with this. Playing with a few things there, Jinx. I think you're going to be more aware of what options there are for commands and stuff than I will, quite quickly. But I know of this site. It's an easy way to try to have some things for references, different things to do for exercises, and just keeping yourself familiarized with them. I don't want to do anything too terribly intricate, but some basic exercises and stuff that we can all do every day. Just try to keep things going. I think one of the easy ones to start off with, something that we all probably do on a very regular basis. Let's just go with this. Something pretty simple. Pump the ankles up and down, something we can all do while we're sitting here, chilling, having a good time. Speaking of which, can you all hear the music okay? Hopefully everything should be playing through all right. Good. Glad to hear. But yeah, 40 times certainly won't be a hard one. I imagine most people will be able to go through them without any difficulty. But just feel free to start off with these, go through them. We'll spend a little bit of time with each one, and then it'll be good for us to set through and go through another batch. Should almost set a timer. Like, all right, let's work on this one for a minute. Let's work on another one for a minute. More ideas. Maybe for the next one. What many people may not know from their terminology, a long arc quad. Basically, just kicking your leg up. Oh, that one's the best picture there. Oh, that one will probably work a little bit better. You start with your leg down, just kick it out straight in front of you. Of course, any of us could do these. You could try to put a little bit of weight on the end of your leg while you're working at kicking them up. But honestly, just getting some motion going can do wonders. If you have a cat on your lap, I think you're just doomed to sit there until somebody can relieve you or the cat decides to jump. If you can manage to go through your exercises and keep a cat on your lap, props to you. That must be one docile cat. But there's no maximum amount that you should have to be able to do. Anything that you can do for any of these exercises is better than nothing. One thing that's always nice is being able to compete with yourself. If you could only do, let's just say 5. Maybe the next time we do this, you can aim for 6. Slowly but surely, you just build yourself up little by little. Next one. Marches. And rather than standing marches, let's go with seated marches. We're just going to stick with sitting. If we're all sitting here in front of the stream and this is the first time everybody's going through everything, no sense in making it overly dramatic. We're just going to stick with seated exercises. Maybe tomorrow we can have a little bit more of an arm day. These aren't intensive enough to really give you a major workout, but maybe we can go through that slowly but surely, see what everybody thinks. I think this is the most relaxing music I've ever had to try to do while going through a workout. Most of the time you want some of that stuff that can give you a little bit of an adrenaline rush. Might have to see if there's some DMCA free stuff. Alright, next one's hip abduction. Clamshells. It's being able to open those knees up, bring them back together. Is everybody still awake? Now, I don't know why, but I was almost half expecting somebody to redeem a screecher at that moment. Don't you even think about it. Doing good. This website is called HEP to go. Basically, it stands for Home Exercise Program to Go. You can make an account and sign in. You don't have to give any primary information, but I know it's utilized by medical professionals. It's free to use. And all you have to do is just have a username, use an email, boom, done. So you'll be able to look things up. Let's see here. And then for next ones. This one may not say too much. What a glute set would be is you take your gluteus maximus, which most of you will probably know is your bum, and try to squeeze your butt cheeks together. Just try to squeeze them together, maybe hold for 5-10 seconds, and then relax. Just do that from time to time. You sit on your bum enough, hey, you need to keep that muscle going. If it turns to flab, you're going to have a hurt butt. Do enough times, maybe you'll have enough cushion. You'll sit on anything. And don't mind the silence. Just kind of going through some of the exercise myself as well. And I think one of the last easy ones to try to do. Let's do chair raises. Sometimes it's kind of interesting to see what can come up on these because they're not all exact all the time. Be a chair push-up. Nope, not quite that extent. This is closer. Not what I'm wanting though. There we go. Chair dips. Same idea. This one's definitely a full body workout. It's pretty easy to do, but all you do is you raise yourself up and down off of your seat, maybe about an inch or two off. And just try to stand up and sit down as many times as you can, just only going so high. You're kind of doing a small squat. You can use your arms and legs as much as you like. And just because you don't have a large amount of weights at home doesn't mean you can't use your body to your benefit. The more you use your arms, your legs, you're lifting up probably 100-something pounds. Who knows? All right. Good warm up. A lot of times, yeah, exercises can stay simple, but the big point is work yourself until you get a little tired. Your body starts to learn, oh, I'm going to have to build myself up so I can do this more. Well, I suppose that's more or less what I plan to do, and that's a bit of a leg day. Suppose maybe next time I'll pull one up for tomorrow and do arms. I don't know if the intensity of it will be enough to where we can do legs and arms. Maybe we'll do a couple sets of things. We'll just have to see how time goes. But we've pretty much worked out just about every set of muscles across our legs. Though I suppose something else that would be nice to work on for a lot of people that This would honestly probably be one of the better ways to work this muscle group. Just standing in a chair. Unless you have some resistance that you can actually pull your foot back underneath of your seat. You're using your hamstring muscle there. And at least standing up behind your chair and just lifting up your leg like that. That will allow you to work that muscle against gravity. Kind of the best that you can do from the limited positions that we have here. I think honestly though, I'll have to take some time and go through these exercises a little more thoroughly and set something up that can be more of an official workout for all of us to do. It's one of these times where it's almost a shame that I don't have one of those 3D avatars. Going through and demonstrating things a lot better. I will say one thing I would definitely love to recommend to people is I've watched him myself a few times, Lord Athelstan. He's done a bit of an exercise routine himself and gone in depth in demonstrating a bunch of exercises. I highly recommend you check him out sometime. And Jinx, I don't know how to do it, but that almost be one of those times where just as you wanted to highlight or refer the stream over to someone, I'm not sure how you did it, but yeah, being able to like do a referral to Lord Athelstan or something at that moment. If you figure it out, let me know. But with all of those exercises we just went over, you pretty much covered every major muscle group across for your lower body. There's not many muscles down there, but they're all fairly big and you need them to support yourself. So, simple is best. Tomorrow, when we go over arms, that'll be a little more complicated. Our arms aren't as stable as our legs, so they have a lot more movement. Then again, you have a lot smaller muscles across there in order to try to give you as much range as possible. So moving on from the exercises, I had seen a preview for this. I hadn't actually watched the full video, but I thought this was kind of interesting because I believe Anton here, one of the channel creators I like to watch for science content, he's talking about how this year we're going to see a rare event occur to where you can see a flash occur up in the sky, about how a white dwarf, after it acquires enough mass from other objects, will do a nova explosion that we can see with the naked eye. So I figured it'd be nice to kind of watch the little bit of this and make some commentary on the side. But honestly, a lot of the stuff he's going to talk about is probably going to be over my head. But I love how he kind of dumbs things down. It's nice to have somebody who is aware of advanced topics, but is still able to bring it down to a more casual conversation level.
Biggest astronomical event of 2024 is, I guess, the solar eclipse on April 8th of 2024. At least that's the one that everyone is talking
Just
about.
let me know if
Technically,
that's too loud
for
or not loud
astronomers,
enough.
it's
Okay. Suppose it was on max volume.
not that at all. It's actually the event we're
How
going
is
to be
that?
discussing today, and it's a recurring event that happens every 80 years. And so
Buttered,
basically
wonderful,
in
smooth.
2024, we get two separate opportunities to observe something that we usually don't get to see. Obviously the solar eclipse, but also what's known as a recurrent nova. And so, hello wonderful person, this is Anton. Today we're going to discuss this astronomical event that actually might have already happened when you're watching this video, or it might have not. We don't actually know the exact date yet, but it's happening really, really soon. Or so the scientists think. But first, let's actually talk about what it is and how all of this works. And it all starts with white dwarfs. These very unusual objects we're going to be discussing again in a video very soon,
love the fact
because
that they're
something
so
really
small.
important was discovered about them, but also a type of an object that the sun is going to become as well. This is what's known as a stellar remnant. In some sense, the core of the star itself that becomes extremely dense and collapses on itself, but is unable to produce a neutron star or a black hole because it just doesn't have enough mass. But it does
Hint, hint, I think I might be originating from something like this. But that's just a hypothesis for now.
have enough mass to form what's known as electron degenerate matter on the inside that's able to prevent further collapse. In other words, it's actually been compared to a kind of an ocean of electrons that, because of various quantum effects, such as the inability of electrons to be in the same place, prevents the object from growing smaller and maintains the overall size and shape. And most of the stars in the galaxy, including our sun, are going to become one of these. And they're actually going to stay this way for billions and billions of years. Why?
Yeah, going back on some of the science of that, I love that stuff. Think about the fact that all of those atoms are squished so close together that at that point in size, those electrons are repelling each other, and that is the singular thing keeping that from completely collapsing in on itself because it is so heavy. Also, the idea that over time, some of those electrons will escape here or there and it'll slowly collapse in on itself. Oh, that is so awesome to think about. I think they also said that if you could ever land on surface, or once the main amount of energy expires, then it is basically one giant diamond. Right now it just has a crap load of electrons around it.
White dwarfs tend to stay this way and don't change much over a very long period of time. But the thing is, about half of the stars in the galaxy are binary, and that means that sometimes you'll actually get two stars growing older at different times. One might have already become a white dwarf, and one is still in its red giant stage. And if these two stars orbit close enough, they actually tend to interact, producing very specific, very unique effects. One might have already become a white dwarf, but the other one is still going through its red giant stage. And so here, as the red giant starts...
Gosh, that'd be so amazing to see like a binary system. One of them goes nova and explodes, but the other one that is relatively speaking close by is hit with that nova, but it still manages to keep itself together. God, the amount of forces and everything. God, that kind of physics. It'd be amazing if we last long enough and we do space travel and they can see some of these events occur directly. Like just record it, watching a star explode. Oh, that'd be so cool.
to expand and starts to basically become larger and larger, sometimes its outer layers start to interact with the white dwarf. And in those cases, white dwarfs will actually start absorbing a lot of this mass and essentially create an accretion disk around themselves, forming something similar to what you see right here. And in those cases, when these accretion disks become thick enough or actually acquire just enough mass, they reach a kind of an instability period where at some point within just weeks or sometimes months, they reach a point of a nuclear detonation. Literally, a massive nuclear bomb explodes around the white dwarf as most of the accretion disk suddenly turns into energy. And in essence, this is what we call nova. Not supernova, just nova. It's called that because back in the days, from a distance, it looked like some kind of a new star, and nova means new. And this is basically what we're going to be observing sometimes in 2024. But the thing is, I've actually discussed this particular prediction almost like a decade ago, I think. Possibly.
Wanted to say, I can be wrong on this, but I think when a white dwarf explodes and reaches an exact amount of mass, they know exactly how much mass it is and then how bright it is when it produces its nova. So it becomes, oh, I forget the exact term. I believe a candlestick. But with that, they are able to gauge distances. As long as one thing is consistent, they can see one star explode, have the same brightness, and then another one explodes. And then they can see how the brightness changes between the two. And that will kind of give you a little bit more of an idea on distances. So that's how we can find out how far some of those things are that keep happening. Like, how the world do you measure this stuff? Yeah, that's one aspect of it.
In 2016, this is when originally some of the initial predictions started to be made. And so back then, researchers actually realized something unusual about a system known as T Corona Borealis, a system that we already knew was actually a nova previously, possibly at least twice. The most well-known eruption was back in 1946, and it was obviously studied and observed by a lot of different astronomers, but originally this particular star was found back in 1866, 80 years prior, because of its previous eruption, and because normally you're not actually going to be able to see the star without at least binoculars or a small telescope. But in 1866 and 1946, suddenly we had a new star. We had a nova, with this lasting for just under 1 week. And this was a pretty bright star. It suddenly became one of the 100 brightest stars in the night skies. Technically, when it happens again, it's even going to be visible in a typical city. Here, light pollution is not going to hide it. And so several studies from years ago...
Yeah. I don't know if a lot of people realize, if you live out in the country and you can see a lot of those stars, you don't have as much light pollution. If you live in a larger town or city, then you have all the ambient light around everywhere, and it just prevents you from seeing all the stars in the sky. So if you do live in a larger populated area and you're ever wanting to take a look at something, unless you do know already, yeah, definitely go out for like a country drive or something, or maybe sometime on vacation. Take a look out there. Like, just look at the night sky on a clear night where there is just no light around. Whole new experience.
Essentially analyzed the active state in 2015 and 2016, realizing something really strange. Here the star suddenly became a little bit brighter, a little bit more active, produced more radio light, produced more X-rays, with the overall increase in production extremely similar to what happened in 1938, basically 8 years before the 1946 eruption. Moreover, additional observations and additional studies from just a few years ago revealed an unusual dip or unusual dimming event sometime in June of 2018, and then a much larger dip in March of 2023, basically last year. And this was extremely similar to a very sudden dip in 1945. As you can see here, it was May to June 1945. And literally 9 to 10 months later, we suddenly had this very large, very explosive event. As a result, that particular paper predicted that this nova will probably happen in January of 2024. Well, January? It didn't, but I think it's more of a it didn't yet. In the past, a lot of predictions of various nova
like, crap, did I miss it? No!
Large timeline errors. And so in this case, it's probably going to be at least plus minus 7 months. Now, because this particular star is approximately 3,000 light years away from us, being able to suddenly see it with a naked eye is already pretty impressive. But what's even more impressive is actually if you compare this to other nova, and specifically other recurrent nova. Here's a very short list, there's basically like a dozen or so, and most of them are really well known, and moreover, pretty much for most of them, the predictions so far have been relatively accurate. The most recent one was just over a year ago, and it was a recurrent nova in U Scorpii. Here the peak magnitude was approximately 8. Then, just a year prior to this, we had an eruption from a very famous nova, RS Ophiuchi, and this one is known to have happened many times. But here the brightest it's ever been was magnitude of 5. Sort of visible with the naked eye, but kind of difficult. This though, the nova that's about to happen, is going to be 2.5 magnitude. And if you know anything about magnitudes, that's pretty bright. It's extremely close to the famous North Star or Polaris, meaning that it's going to be extremely easily visible. Not as easily visible as Sirius, which is a little bit brighter, and actually does contain its own white dwarf right there, but definitely bright enough to be visible from a typical city. And moreover, once again, this is one of those once-in-a-lifetime events. It seems to happen every 80 years. And intriguingly, one of the scientists wanted to find out if the period is really 80 years or not. And so Bradley Sheffer essentially went through various historical records looking for signs of unusual stars in this region. And he did find writings from Reverend Francis Wollaston, who back in 1789 reported an unusual star appearing for a few days in the location of Corona Borealis, pretty much exactly where we expect this nova to happen. Likewise, 6th century before this, in 1217, there was an eyewitness report by Abbot Burchard of Augsburg of some kind of a stellar source that suddenly produced a lot of light and lasted for many days. Back then he saw this as a wonderful sign. Today we also see it as a wonderful sign, but for a very different, wonderful reason, scientific reason. It basically reminds us that modern science is super correct and helps us predict events we knew nothing about just a few hundred years ago. And so I guess the question is, okay, so when exactly is it going to happen? Since we only have a few days to observe it, how do we make sure we don't miss it? Well, right now the prediction is set for April plus minus 3 months. So basically April, May, June, July, maybe August, maybe September. And so by September of 2024, we should see something. The nova should have already happened, because right now the observations are very similar to various pre-nova events in 1946. And just to make this a little bit more interesting, let's turn it into a game. Try to predict it. Leave a comment below with some kind of a date, essentially starting today up until I guess any time in the future, when you think this might happen. And if one of you wonderful prophets succeeds in guessing the actual day of the nova, there might be a surprise or present or something. I didn't really plan this one yet. But I don't know, you might get something, possibly a t-shirt, possibly something else. I'll think about it. But anyway, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go with a date that's kind of important for me personally. September 27th. I'll explain why a bit later. So yeah, as long as you predict this before it happens, not on the day and not after, I'll consider you a winner. And if a bunch of you predict the same date, I guess you're all winners, kind of. Anyway, either way, when this happens, it's going to be very important for the scientific community. Being able to observe these events in real time and studying what happens to these stars, the red giant and the white dwarf, which are the same two stages our sun is going to go through as well, will probably teach us a little bit more about what happens to these stars and what might happen to the sun as well. And in case of this particular system, it already has a few mysteries. For example, for some reason there seems to be an unusual lack of oxygen inside the red giant. Currently it's unknown why. On top of this, the scientists want to understand why there are so few of these recurrent nova out there. Now, previous research suggested that all nova are recurrent, they just have very different periods. Some of them happen every few years, some of them might happen every few centuries. So we basically don't live long enough to see any of them. Nevertheless, because there are only like a dozen so far known to us in the galaxy, that by itself is a really small number. And that of course highlights how exceptionally rare this particular event is. Way more rare than the solar eclipse, and way more rare than anything else we'll see in the next few decades. Okay, except for maybe certain comets. But most comets are pretty common. And so basically, in the next few months, we'll be hearing more about this binary system, 3,000 light years away from us, with two stars orbiting each other every 228 days. In case you're wondering, the distance between them is approximately half as much as the distance of Earth from the Sun. But because the transfer of material is about to reach its peak, which is probably why we're seeing these unusual dips, it means that the explosion itself is pretty much imminent. it's definitely going to happen anytime now. And the reason I'm saying this with so much confidence is because previous predictions from, for example, uScorpii were also spot on as well. This was predicted years ahead, and it happened within just a few months of the predicted date. Same thing for this particular nova, and for many others. But because this is going to be the brightest event ever, possibly the brightest one we're going to see for at least another century, that's why it deserves its own video. In terms of science and astronomy, this is going to be much bigger than the solar eclipse. And so once it does happen, we'll come back and talk more about actual discoveries, and if one of you guesses the date, we'll probably talk about the winner and the prize. Until then, thank you for watching, subscribe, share this with someone who loves learning about space and sciences, come back tomorrow to learn something else, support this channel on Patreon by joining channel membership or by buying the Wonderful Person t-shirt you can find in the description. Stay wonderful, I'll see you tomorrow, and as always, bye bye.
I love his content. And the documents and stuff that he was providing earlier in order to try to show things, it really kind of helps out. Let's see here. Where did he have that? Was it earlier? Kind of where he had that star map. There. Because it kind of helps to know where the star is going to explode at. Oop, there you go. Unfortunately, I am terrible for trying to read that. But please feel free to, yeah, I'm definitely going to plan on giving him a like. Definitely hop into his channel. I'm already subscribed. I definitely recommend. Give some credit to the guy. He's got some good content. I've been watching him for years. I am certainly no expert on anything, but it is amazing just to watch somebody explain this stuff. And then I suppose moving on to something else here. I've seen this and I was kind of interested mostly by the title. I wanted to try to look at a little bit more of SciShow and some other consistent science channels. I'm not sure which ones all to currently watch. Some of them might be a little more advanced, but I don't think that they'd hold interest nearly as much. A wonderful example of that would be one of my personal favorites is PBS Spacetime. He goes over some very advanced subjects, and I may not understand very much, but he explains it in enough of a way to where you watch concurrent videos and you get more and more of an understanding of in-depth topics. But it can be a bit overwhelming and not quite as interesting unless you actually care to know about it. But I wanted to see this, you know, the volcanologist kind of, seems like it hits a little bit closer to home.
Thanks to Brilliant for supporting this SciShow video and offering all SciShow viewers a 30-day free trial and 20% off an annual premium subscription for the first 200 people who sign up at brilliant.org/SciShow. On December 18th, 2023, near the town of Grindavik, Iceland, a 4-kilometer-long fissure opened and spewed lava skyward in a beautiful and terrifying show of nature.
Hey, that scenery looks a little familiar.
Power. Several more eruptions have followed, and more might even occur between the time we're filming this and the time you're watching it. Magma continues to accumulate beneath the ground, and it seems like we're gonna see quite a few more eruptions before everything calms down. We know this because scientists in Iceland have a toolbox of ways to closely monitor and forecast volcanic eruptions. But they faced some challenges. While there's never a good time for a volcano to erupt, it turns out winter in Iceland is especially bad. That's because it is tough to monitor a volcano in stormy, dark, wintry conditions. And no, it's not just because geologists don't like being cold. Now remember that not all volcanic eruptions are your classic cone-shaped mountain blowing its top. This is more of a bunch of cracks opening from below, and it's not in just one place either. No matter what kind, though, predicting an eruption is tough under the best of circumstances, and an Icelandic winter is not the best of circumstances.
So yeah, in general, the weather in Iceland is often not very amenable to volcanic monitoring.
Oh, by the way, we decided to ask an expert to help us understand why it being winter has anything to do with monitoring a volcano.
Yeah, so my name is Sean Wilsey. I am a geology professor at the College of Southern Idaho in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Sean has been live streaming these eruptions, which is a thing that you can do in this century, as well as creating a bunch of informative content on YouTube that we will link to in the description. So, what do stormy North Atlantic winters have to do with molten rock coming out of the ground? Well, a few things, actually. Seismographs are used to monitor the swarms of small earthquakes that often come before an eruption. But these instruments, of course, pick up all kinds of vibrations.
The wind can also affect our ability to detect very small earthquakes with some of the seismometers.
If it's stormy, with a lot of wind or pounding waves,
I don't want to just play through an entire video silently. Sometimes it's hard to throw a tidbit in here or there because they just go over things so well. It's kind of like, what can I add? I suppose talking about my own personal interests on things, I find dealing with vibrations through ground, water, air, all the elements and everything. Oh, sorry, I just kind of noticed your comment. Apologies very much. I'm going to have to remember to set everything to a half volume.
near the shore, seismometers are so sensitive, and some of those earthquakes are so small, that the weather actually obscures the presence of the earthquakes. Scientists also use GPS sensors to track how the ground rises when magma accumulates beneath it. But heavy precipitation can interfere with a GPS antenna communicating with satellites, which creates gaps in the data. Luckily, volcanologists have another way of measuring how the ground deforms. INSAR is a method that uses a satellite to bounce pulses of radar off the ground. Making multiple passes over the same spot and comparing the bounced signals can tell you how the ground is deforming. INSAR is pretty good at seeing through clouds from winter storms, but it has an Achilles heel: snow.
INSAR uses radar, and so if you have, we're trying to measure changes in the land surface, but if you do a pass with the satellite and measure the elevations, and then it snows 3 inches, and then you do another pass, now the land is risen because of the snow, but not because of uplift, and so that can really distort the data.
In fact, INSAR can be used to measure and monitor snow levels in super remote places. But let's just say ski conditions in Grindavik are not the priority right now. Finally, scientists can also learn a lot from analyzing the amount and composition of volcanic gases. Collecting these samples by hand comes with the risks associated with walking into an active volcano. Tragically, in
God, you imagine trying to do that? Walking out on there, you know that there's like lava right there, but there could just be a soft spot underneath your feet. You take one step and you just go right into it. Oh, boy, that'd be terrifying, wouldn't it? Except, well, for me anyway. Just be a nice bath.
1996 scientists were killed when sampling gas from a volcano in Colombia. Fortunately, now we can monitor those gases remotely at much less risk to human life. The technique is called differential optical absorption spectroscopy, or DOAS. See, as the beam of ultraviolet light shines through the air, the gases it passes through absorb certain wavelengths of the light. This means each gas creates a unique fingerprint in the light that travels through it. You can see the gaps where something's missing, almost like a shadow. So you can set up a sensor and look at the spectrum of light that just traveled through a volcanic plume. By comparing this light to light that only traveled through the atmosphere, you can see which wavelengths of light are missing and figure out how much of a particular gas is in that plume. A DOAS sensor can...
God, I love that about science. Being able to pull missing information out and determining what something is exactly. They do the same thing, kind of like following along the video earlier with stars. That's how they can determine their makeup. Because of that light coming off of them, the energy released is coming off of a certain element, so it has some missing properties. And that's how you can kind of tell how much metal or how far along a star is from just burning hydrogen into heavier and heavier elements.
Measure gases as accurately as a part per trillion, just by looking at the light that passes through it. Now you do, though, have to sort of play around with angles a little bit for this to work.
The spectroscopy requires that you can see through the gas plume. And if your volcano's at the top of a mountain, like a cone-shaped volcano, then it works pretty well. But if your volcanic vent or your volcanic region is in a low area, like in a valley, then you don't have a clear line of sight through that volcanic gas plume with sunlight behind it.
This technology has actually been around since the 1970s, but it wasn't until the 2010s that we've been able to make them portable enough to allow scientists to quickly set them up in hard-to-reach areas, which is often where you will find erupting volcanoes. The most common gas present in a volcanic plume is water vapor, followed by carbon dioxide, but these are both pretty common in the atmosphere naturally. Because volcanoes only increase the amount of these gases by a little bit, that's tough to measure. It has been done, but you need a really wet volcano in a really dry place to be able to measure water vapor with DOAS. So most often, these sensors look for sulfur dioxide. An increase in sulfur dioxide emissions means that magma is coming up to the surface, so it's a good indicator for forecasting an eruption. Not that it's foolproof, though. A 2011 eruption in Nicaragua had a pretty slight increase in sulfur dioxide right before, but after the fact, researchers pointed out it ended up being a relatively small eruption that didn't evolve a big shift in magma. Iceland has a number of volcanoes that are constantly watched by DOAS sensors, part of a global monitoring network.
I think all that's interesting. I didn't really know too much about that for the gases. I did want to make that comment, though, that part of my background inspiration is based on Icelandic fields. Them being able to have one of the only surface areas for large volcanic fields while also having an aurora borealis. It's got to be a beautiful sight to see in person. You can see pictures, but pictures never do anything justice for seeing it with your own eyes.
They installed 2 new portable instruments in November 2023 when it looked like things around Grindavik were heating up. This came along with a disclaimer from the Icelandic Meteorological Office that using them would be challenging. Remember, you need a source of ultraviolet light. The sun works perfectly when it's around.
We're not able to use the sunlight to measure the volcanic gases because we have this short window of time. And so it's real limiting at places like Iceland, where it's just not feasible this time of year.
We checked, and Reykjavik gets a solid 4 hours of daylight on the winter solstice. Less UV light means the sensor receives a lower signal, and the measurements it makes aren't as accurate. Now, scientists have found some clever ways around this. Some have successfully used the light of the moon to make measurements at night. Using the natural light of either the sun or moon is called passive DOAS. The other way you can do it is to bring your own light. That's called active DOAS. This means setting up a spotlight next to your sensor and a mirror on the opposite side of the plume, reflecting artificial light through the volcanic gas. That means more things to set up and get electricity to, but it does help you see a volcanic plume in the dark. Now, this might make it seem like we're trapped between 2 sources of nature's wrath, between an erupting volcano and a ferocious winter. That doesn't mean that we can't do anything. On the contrary, we have an astonishing amount of information about this ongoing event. Remember how I told you that Sean live streams these things? There's webcams, seriously.
That's what's amazing about volcano monitoring is our first real excellent piece of data once the eruption has begun is just observation based. And so it's looking at webcams, it's maybe boots on the ground, people that are there, it could be drones, but that information is incredibly valuable in not just understanding the eruptive behavior of that specific episode, but possibly predicting how that eruption is going to evolve over time. Direct observations from whether it's scientists or just general public viewers is an incredibly important part of the volcano monitoring game.
Thanks to Sean for sharing all of his insights. Again, you can find links to his work in the description. Never underestimate the combination of plain old human eyeballs and scientific curiosity. We are getting better at predicting volcanic eruptions and keeping people safe every day. If they do decide to evacuate the area, it would be a bad time to own a rental property out there. And if you're trying to plan where to buy a rental property, Brilliant might be able to help you out. Yes, Brilliant, the interactive online learning platform with thousands of lessons in science, computer science, and math,
I think
also tackles
Brilliant would be
case studies
interesting.
now. In their case study,
If anything,
Unlocking
I would
Rental Value
love
on Airbnb, you'll use
if
data visualization to
I
learn for
could,
yourself how
have
to find the
Brilliant
best neighborhoods
sponsor,
for rental
be
properties.
able
There
to
are all
play a
kinds of
few
graphs and
games
plots.
through
You can use
things,
this Brilliant
show
case
you
study
guys.
to explore
I
what
don't
kinds
know
of rentals
to what
perform the
extent that
best
they would
and
allow
how to
a
get the most
stream
out of them.
showing
And you might just learn about summary statistics while
the
you're at it. To get
content
started,
of
go to
those games.
brilliant.org/scishow
Oh, no.
or the link in the description down below. That link
Well, I'd
also
love to
gets the
check.
first 200 people to sign up 20% off an annual premium Brilliant subscription, and you'll get the first 30 days for free. Thanks to Brilliant for supporting this SciShow video.
Once again, SciShow, great channel. Nice work, guys. Definitely subscribe, like. Everybody will help them out. Hey, let's see here. This was 10 days ago, 4.4K. It's a fair bit of people. More views on our side, and hey, maybe we could contribute like a large portion to seeing some of these videos and hiking them up. I'd love that. Other than that, I think that felt comfortable. It's nice to do a little bit of a review and try to learn something new. It'll be nice to have more channels, more content to go through. I would love some recommendations on things. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go through a few channels here and there and just see what all would be interesting to watch. So maybe that might be a project for me today. Maybe we'll do a little bit of gaming, and then next time I can go over more exercises for us to do, as well as finding some other videos to go over and learn something about. But how's everybody doing? Let's see here. See if we can. Get some nice comfortable music playing again for a little bit. But I haven't checked to see how things are going with all of you. I suppose one thing I'll kind of do is I don't like to monitor viewer count across in here, but I would also like to know if there's any additional people in here that I don't know. Hello, Kai. Seems I got a couple people in here, and we'll have to find some way to bump things up a little bit more too. But that additional content with having some exercises, more videos to watch. Something else I'll have to check into, as well as I'd love to learn more about tying knots. Because honestly, I think knot tying could be so beneficial, but it's something none of us really do enough to try to retain the idea and the motor coordination in order to follow through on just doing it when you might need it. Because I doubt a couple years will go by, never tied a knot before. Oh, hey, I remember that video that one time. They tied a knot doing this. And oh my gosh, it worked for exactly what I needed. More often than not, If you don't use it, you lose it. Something else I'll have to do for a bit of fun as well is I want to experiment with having some stream games. I'll be honest in seeing that there are a few other streamers that have had interesting AFK games of sorts. But yeah, I'll have to try to find out which ones those are, and maybe we can play a few of those. Just something easy on the side. I'd love to do more interactive stuff. For now, only having a couple viewers here or there, I'll probably stick to playing some games, trying to keep some commentary in it. Gotta keep you guys going. Otherwise, I'm gonna take a quick break. I'll be back here in just a little bit. Alright, I'm back. So, I'm not entirely sure. I think it'd be great to try to find out some more things on videos, words, exercises, everything I keep repeating over and over. But feel free to ever mention anything in chat or maybe across on Discord. We can always discuss some more things some other time. Maybe like, what kind of science videos, basically purely objective types of information, would you like to watch and see? Can you think of any subjects, topics, anything off the top of your heads? I suppose at the moment I can see if there's just a couple of you on, but don't want to completely single you out. Put some stuff in Discord. Yeah, actually. Indeed you did. Yeah, how about we watch a bit of that? Alright, let's move over to the big screen again.
This is a video about...
Oh good, the volume's already down partway. Alright. Let's put the other music on hold here. There we go. Alright.
about how Japanese swords are made. Swords that are strong enough and sharp enough to slice a bullet in half.
Oh.
The access we got for this video is incredible. We were able to film everything from gathering the iron sand, to smelting the iron, forging the sword, to sharpening and polishing it. They even let us use it.
That is so cool!
Those swords are so amazing.
The method
aren't
of
they?
making these swords has remained virtually unchanged for hundreds of years, with everything done by hand. They are still considered to be among the best in the world.
The Japanese made a weapon that was the absolute pinnacle for their style of warfare and the materials they had at hand.
These swords are held in such high regard that one from the 16th century has been appraised at $105 million, making it the most expensive sword ever built.
What? Man, if the craftsman had any
In the
idea.
Shimane province of Japan, there is a smelter that is lit for only one night each year, where steel is made in the same way it was 1,300 years ago. It's known as the Tatara method, and only steel made in this way ends up in the very best Japanese swords. And we were invited to come film it. Just after 9 a.m., the ceremonial prayers are said and the fire is lit by a Shinto priest. Everyone that will be working the smelter will be here for at least the next 24 hours. That includes Veritasium producer Peter.
I'm committed. We're gonna do this. It's gonna be fun.
Sword making in Japan goes back about 3,000 years, but in those days swords were made out of bronze. We're not sure how
pretty
people
soft.
first learned to smelt metal, but it was likely related to pottery.
In that you were using these rocky ores to make glazes and such for pottery under very controlled atmospheres, and then maybe the potters found metallic beads in the bottom of the furnaces that they were firing at. This possibly gave them the idea.
Bronze was discovered before steel because it's an alloy of copper and usually tin, both metals with low enough melting points that they can be smelted in regular pottery kilns. The problem with bronze is that although it can be sharpened, it's too soft to hold an edge for long. So Japanese sword makers shifted to steel 1,200 years ago in the Heian period. This is what most people would recognize as a Japanese sword. It's made of steel with a curved blade. Steel is an alloy of iron, the fourth most common element in Earth's crust. The oceans of the world used to be rich with dissolved iron. But 2.5 billion years ago, cyanobacteria started photosynthesizing and creating oxygen. The iron reacted with that oxygen, precipitating out of solution to be deposited at the bottom of the ocean. Incidentally, the cyanobacteria were poisoned by the oxygen that they themselves produced, so it's thought that when levels got high enough, they died off, and as a result, oxygen levels dropped and iron no longer precipitated out of solution.
At least make a little bit of comment myself and not just watch the video purely. Chemistry is so amazing. You can backtrack, you can solve things, you can figure out how to build just about anything as long as you follow the right steps. One of those things about the oxygen I think is interesting when I watched a video once about the great oxygenation of events. How purging, gosh, what was it, like 98% of life each time when oxygen became too prevalent across the atmosphere? Then it dulled back down and repeated the process over and over until eventually an equilibrium occurred. Yeah, we'll have to watch another video on that. More content.
Then the cyanobacteria could multiply again, and the cycle repeated.
Yeah, Kai, it is a bit of a shame that there aren't as many katana smiths, but honestly, the fact that they keep up a lot of old traditions when in just about any other country through the world, we'd find a refined or industrialized process, and then we just stick with that. Wouldn't even try to refine the process individually. It is a real shame. I feel like nowadays another trait of that would be maybe grandparents teaching their children about crocheting, knitting, embroidery. That work can all be done industrially, but doing it by hand, it's just different. But yeah, back to the video.
That's why most of the world's iron is found in layers of sedimentary rock called banded iron formations. Each layer of iron was formed during a global flourishing of cyanobacteria that infused the ocean with oxygen. The majority of the global iron supply comes from these banded iron formations because of their high concentration of iron, up to around 60% iron oxide by weight. But Japan, with its mostly volcanic geology, has barely any of these sedimentary iron oxides, and this is likely why the country was late to the steel production game. Archaeologists have found steel artifacts in Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey, that are nearly 4,000 years old. But in Japan, metals, including steel, were imported from China and Korea up until the 8th century, when Japan started making its own steel. So where did they get the raw ingredients? Well, igneous rocks like granite and diorite still contain iron oxides, just in much lower concentrations. But as the mountains are weathered, these iron oxides are broken apart and washed downstream, Eventually, they become part of the sand.
Ah.
The
That makes
Japanese
sense.
noticed that because iron oxides are denser than other minerals in the sand, they accumulate in places where the river changes direction or speed. The
Much like a lot of times when they do the gold rush or gold digging, they'll follow the exact same process. And now that I think of it, that makes perfect sense as to why they run it through the sifter and they have a magnet on there. There's a lot of times, since iron and gold are so heavy and they deposit down at the bottom, it's easy enough just to take a magnet and you can pull up all of the black sand, which, imagine that, good deposit of iron.
heavier iron sinks to the bottom and the lighter material is washed away. To amplify this effect, they deliberately created diversions in the river to increase the concentration of iron.
What you do is you dam off a section of river and then you drag sand into it. Because iron is heavier than the other parts of the sand, it is the thing that gets left behind and everything else gets washed downstream.
With this method, you can get iron sands with 80% iron oxides by weight. That's more concentrated than high-quality
Wow.
iron ore. And since it has fewer impurities, it's an excellent source
Look,
material
spotter,
for
not powder.
high-quality steel. If you heat up those iron oxides to over 1250 degrees Celsius, you can break the bonds with oxygen and get pure iron. But pure iron is actually softer than bronze, so in its elemental state, iron provides no advantage. But nature gave humans a lucky break. One of the few ways you can heat something up to 1250 degrees is with charcoal. And charcoal is basically pure carbon. And if you add just a little bit of carbon to iron, it creates an incredibly strong alloy, steel.
Yeah, a lot of people see it as a heat process. I see it as a chemical process.
Alloys are usually strong.
I'll admit I hadn't thought too much of that. I knew that you had to have high heat, and I thought it was more of a purity aspect. I didn't realize how much burning with the charcoal and adding the carbon into it just made it that much better. Kind of an imperfect product is actually better than a pure product.
Stronger than pure metals because they contain different sized atoms. And this reduces the ability of atoms to slide past.
I've had some interesting ideas that, it does remind me that I believe I'd read a couple years ago about how one of the strongest alloys that we've ever made now, I believe it is a combination of titanium and gold. To where titanium is just that strong and gold fills in all of the points in between, much like how it shows here with the carbon filling in the iron spots. I kind of wonder how far off in the future we are from maybe trying to do some quantum tunneling and taking some of these types of processes and refining them to the point that you can just kind of teleport or tunnel the other atoms or even just components of it, like additional neutrons or something, into the gaps and make whole new elements. Or, yeah, elements, I suppose. The terminology can escape me because, by golly, it's not like I get to talk about these types of things too often lately.
Past each other when an external force is applied.
So I've just been given gloves, other gloves, and a towel. So things are very much getting real. I'm genuinely quite worried. And here is the room with all of the charcoal that we're
Here,
going to
maybe
be
I
using
can help.
overnight.
Here,
There's
does this-
just
does this
bags
work?
and bags of
Does this work?
stuff. There's a Buddha saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Very much a
After
hothead.
enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. I'm here. Okay,
Can't say I know exactly how hot my head is,
so we're lining up on the four corners, I guess.
but who knows? Maybe you could forge on it. God, that would hurt.
Whoa. Oh boy, didn't do a great job of that. So the rain is coming, so we're quickly getting all of the charcoal out and then measuring it. So each bag of these is 10 kilos. Okay. So with the iron sand, it is mixed together with water, because if you don't mix it with water and you put it on the flame, it just flies straight up. But if you mix it with too much water, then there is water that's going to heat up, it's going to become water vapor,
Yeah, I
and the
agree.
whole kiln could explode.
Having these rituals and just making the event special maintains tradition as you work through those things. One thing that surprises me, I'm honestly surprised by the color of it, because that is fairly pure iron. Looks like it's a little bit oxidized, but I don't know. I suppose I just imagined maybe a little bit darker, but that just might be because a lot of times you probably see it in a wetter context and seeing something more like this.
Terrifyingly enough, they do this by feel. They mix in enough water until the iron sand is clumpy, but again, if it's too much, the whole thing could explode.
Almost looks like a soil.
Coco, hi. Okay, put some iron in. It is just past 4 in the afternoon, and over the last couple of hours we have added 250 kilograms of charcoal and nearly 60 kilograms of iron sand. So yeah, it's a slow process, but I think we're starting to get somewhere. I have no idea, because obviously the thing is hidden, but it should be growing.
So
To
pretty.
achieve the high temperatures required to make steel, you need a strong, steady supply of oxygen. For hundreds of years, this was provided by huge foot-operated bellows. It would have taken
Oh yeah, there's our exercise right there. How about we go do that, everyone?
an around-the-clock, full-body effort by many men to maintain the furnace's temperature.
When I came here, I was a little bit sad that the bellows were electric.
Gosh, they
I
had to
really
be in
wanted
excellent shape to
you
be
know,
doing that
have
for
this
so
proper
long.
experience, have this proper workout.
How long do
of
you think you would even
stepping on these
last?
bellows for 24 hours?
The temperature inside the smelter gets up to 1500 degrees Celsius, just below the melting point of iron, which is 1538 Celsius. So the iron being smelted isn't liquid, but it's soft and malleable enough to clump together into a big block of iron. No matter how high quality the iron sand is, there will always be some impurities, like sulfur, phosphorus, and silicon oxides. They combine with carbon from the charcoal and melt at a lower temperature than iron, so they become liquid and flow to the bottom. This is known
Nice
as
effect.
slag. After many more hours of adding charcoal and iron sand, it is time for the first removal of the slag. Before the first removal of slag, another prayer is said.
Oh, that's insane.
Oh, nice guy. I didn't know that. It's been a very long time since I've seen Princess Mononoke.
Whoa! So for the last 3 hours, there's been 3 processes that we've been doing. 1 is adding the charcoal, 2 is adding the iron sand, and 3 is opening up the smelter from the bottom to break apart the impurities so they can flow out. Just want you guys to know that it's 3:16 in the morning and I'm still here and I'm really sleepy.
Gosh, to be doing that for so long. That'd be one
It's
heck of an
currently
adrenaline
6
rush trying to
o'clock
stay
in
up
the
for
morning
that
the
long
next
doing
day.
a
We've
lot
been
of hard
smelting for
labor.
21 hours. I'm exhausted, but the sun is about to come out, and it's been pretty amazing, I gotta be honest. We gotta close these doors really quick before they get mad at me.
At 9 a.m. the next morning, the smelting is complete. A total of 614 kilograms of iron sand and 670 kilograms of charcoal were added to the smelter. At this point, in a traditional smelter, the only way to get the steel out would be to break it apart. These days, a crane is used to take the smelter apart.
Oh, wow, okay. Oh!
You know, some
And what
some
is left to
traditional
show for
aspects
all
can't
that
stick
hard
around
work
forever.
is a 100 kilogram block of steel, iron, and slag. Only around a third of this block is high enough quality to be used in sword making.
Oh, that's insane.
Guy,
That's so cool. The result for all the hard work. This is step one of making a Japanese sword.
The steel is sorted by quality and carbon content, which is also done by eye. In fact, this is one of the exams you need to pass to be certified as a swordsmith. Then the different grades of steel are sent out to one of 300 swordsmiths around the country. Only 30 do it as their full-time job. And one of them is Akihira Kokaji, who we went to visit next. This is when the forging of the sword begins. In a coal oven with hand-pumped bellows, the steel is heated until it is soft and malleable. Then, using hammers, the master swordsmith flattens out the steel. In the old days, this would have been done by the swordsmith and 3 apprentices. The swordsmith using a smaller hammer would set the rhythm, and the apprentices would use big mallets to flatten the steel.
God, that would be intense.
Whew.
You gotta do it quick while it's still hot, but oh my god, to
These
swing
days,
that over and
electric
over and
hammers
over and
are
over.
used.
More industrialization, but hey, the process works.
When the
It's the
steel
same.
is flat enough, it is then bent back on itself. And it is then hammered again to press the steel back together into a solid block. So why go to all this effort, flattening the steel only to fold it back on itself and end up with a chunk of steel the same size as before? Well, because folding does 2 very important things. First, it spreads out the impurities, like silicon, sulfur, and phosphorus. It spreads them out throughout the steel. This ensures a uniform consistency without any weak points.
Yeah, you think
Second,
they did this
it gives
as
the steel
a
a
form
grain.
of art, but it
After
ended up
folding the
actually
sword,
making it
it is
even
now
better than we thought
reinforced
it would
in the
be from
direction that it will
nowadays.
be hit in combat.
It's amazing.
And as a bonus,
sometimes
the steel is
old
exposed to
techniques
the air,
nowadays,
so there is a small amount of
just
oxidation,
a better
creating
method.
a darker colored steel, which when folded makes beautiful patterns. There are some swords which have more than 1 billion layers. Now this doesn't mean the sword has been folded 1 billion times, since every fold doubles the number of layers, so you only need about 30 folds to get 1 billion layers. But usually, a
Yeah, you're
sword
right,
is
Kai.
folded
You
10
think
to
back
13
then,
times, resulting in a few
when you
thousand
had so
layers
many
of steel.
places making all of these swords.
Now, a blade isn't made from a single block of steel.
It's hard
the
to
carbon
imagine
content
that
affects
they
how
would just
hard the
run
steel
out
is.
of iron.
So different carbon percentages are used in different parts of the blade. Because carbon atoms are much smaller than iron atoms, they can fit inside the crystal lattice of iron. These trapped carbon atoms
the years
then
of
apply an
refining these
outward force to the
processes, too.
lattice, putting the steel under stress. The higher the carbon percentage, the harder and more rigid the steel. But this hardness comes at a cost. The steel becomes brittle, making it more likely to chip and shatter rather than bend. So what swordsmiths do is they use steel with different carbon contents for different parts of the blade. The edge is always high carbon steel to make it hard and rigid so it can maintain a sharp edge for a long time. But the spine is usually made of lower carbon steel, which allows the sword to flex without breaking. This is done by welding together pieces of steel with different carbon contents.
So we have about a 15-minute break because, it takes a while for the iron to heat up and then meld together, and then we're back in there. It's very hot. It's very, very hot in there. It's kind of unbelievable that he can do this for 4 hours at a time.
After the sword is hammered into shape, which
Can you
is a
imagine how long it
straight
took him to get
blade,
used to the
it
heat?
is covered in a layer of clay, a thick layer for the spine and a thin layer for the blade itself. It's then heated in the furnace and then rapidly cooled in water, a process known as quenching. Now, because the layers of clay have different thicknesses, the rate of cooling is faster for the edge than the spine. When the steel is heated, carbon enters the iron lattice, and since the spine of the sword is covered in thick clay, it will cool slowly, giving time for the carbon atoms to leave the iron matrix. This will lead to a very low carbon steel called ferrite, but the carbon atoms which have left the matrix will be caught by other iron atoms and create a type of steel known as cementite. The combination of ferrite and cementite is known as pearlite, and it's a mostly soft and ductile form of steel, though parts of it are hard due to the cementite. So pearlite forms the spine of the sword. In contrast, the very thin layer of clay on the blade means that it cools very rapidly, so more of the carbon is trapped in the lattice. This forces the lattice structure to change from cubic to tetragonal, making a form of steel known as martensite. Since the trapped carbon puts stress on the lattice, martensite is incredibly hard, exactly what you'd want for the edge of a sword. The tetragonal lattice structure of martensite also takes up more space, so the edge of the blade expands relative to the spine, curving the sword backwards. The iconic curve of a samurai sword comes from the formation of martensite. You can actually see the boundary between different
So
types of
many
steel in a
sights.
finished sword by the difference in color. This is known as hamon, which literally means edge pattern.
At the Victoria Albert Museum in London, there is a Japanese sword that has a very detailed little dragon in the hamon, and I've looked at it many times and I don't know how he did that.
About 1/3 of all blades shatter during the quenching process.
Oh,
You quench
wow.
it once and you thank the stars.
Man, the chances of it coming down to where you only have so much iron, you're able to pull up so much from the rivers that has collected. Then you put it through the furnace, and only so much of it melts down appropriately. And then they said 1/3 of that is actually of the appropriate content in order for you to actually meld it and try to turn it into a sword. And then while you're making the sword, you only have like another 1/3 of a chance to where it could just explode and not work. Probably try to gather the pieces again and forge some more, but God, the exponential failure rates and limitations in this, when one is truly made, it's a work of art.
That you made it.
The sword is then placed back in the forge to evaporate any remaining water. This also provides a little bit of energy to loosen some of the crystal structures, making the sword less brittle.
And that's about the extent of the tempering process on a Japanese sword, which that might be enough to relax things a bit, but they kept the edge much harder than you would have in the West.
After the sword is forged, it is sent to a polisher. The polishing and sharpening of a sword is also done by hand, with whetstones of different coarsenesses. It can take a month to sharpen and polish a single sword.
One of the things that I love is that,
Something I'm not quite aware of is I wonder back in the day when they were trying to find a very fine coarse stone in order to polish something. I wonder how small they were able to get it and what they used. That'd be kind of interesting.
this table is sloping down, and the entire floor over there is sloping down. So when you add the water, all of the residue and all the water, flows downhill. So it's not perfectly flat.
Sometimes the swords are also engraved with beautiful patterns, though this is quite rare.
Wow.
And after all that, the sword is done. To learn how to use a Japanese sword, Peter got a lesson from a master, Takara Takanashi. He is the 10th generation student of Miyamoto Musashi, a legendary samurai. Musashi killed his first opponent in single combat at the age of 13. He spent the rest of his life perfecting his sword fighting, inventing a new technique with 2 swords. Musashi fought in more than 60 duels to the death, and he won every last one of them.
Oh, that takes skill.
There is a story about a duel that took place during a snowstorm. As he faced his opponent, katana outstretched, Musashi was so calm and kept his sword so still that snowflakes began to accumulate on the thin edge of the blade.
So during the lesson, I thought I would get to use a katana, but instead we spent the entire time learning how to take the blade
He's
out
the
of
goat!
the sheath and then put it
The
back in.
goat!
So when I actually got the chance to use a katana to slice through some things, I was deeply unprepared.
Oh, I'd be so nervous. To use something so authentic and so rare.
I'm so scared.
Like, please don't break, please don't break.
Okay, so this has been an amazing day. We've looked at some beautiful katanas, and now these wonderful people are letting me use one of their just unbelievably beautiful pieces of art to chop some things. Like, this is kind of the best day ever.
There really is something remarkable about Japanese swords. The amount of care, attention, and expertise that each step requires, from the gathering and refining of the iron sand, to the smelting, to the forging and sharpening a sword, each step takes so
Nitty
much
gritty with
time
this
and
video
skill.
too. Those flames
It's
were
incredible
marvelous.
that all these things were discovered by trial and error to produce artifacts of such high quality that they are still prized centuries later. Before I made this video, I didn't really appreciate that swords can be art. To me, it's a good reminder that whatever you do, you should do it with deep care, attention to detail, and love for the craft. Do that.
If you love doing something, you never work a day in your life, you're always able to see that finer point to try to make it better and better, just because you care about it. Yeah, boy, to have your name brought forth to such an extent that there's that meaning, like you say in there, Kai. That is something else.
At enough times, and you might just make something beautiful. Hey, this part of the video was brought to you by Henson Shaving. You know, making high-quality things is hard, and as far as I'm concerned, Henson make the highest quality razors in the world. The katanas of the shaving world, if you will.
Katanas
I've been
of the
using their
shaving world.
AL13 razor for the last year, and it's the best razor I've used by a long margin. One of the reasons for that is Henson really understands the physics of shaving, because as aerospace machinists for 20 years, they understand how to cut things effectively. They get precision. Human hair is much harder than the skin it's growing out of, and as a result, typical razors drag and pull on the hair while cutting. What a multi-blade razor does is it assumes that the first cut will be ineffective, and so they build in extra blades to cut the hair before it can snap back into position. And that does result in a good cut, but it also increases friction, leading to razor burn and skin irritation. Henson carefully studied that problem and realized that you didn't need to add extra blades. You just needed to properly support a single blade.
Props to showing
Virtually
so much
every
science
razor
in
on
regards
allows
to
for
this.
too much play in the blade, but Henson doesn't. The result is an effective cut without the additional friction on your skin. Seriously, a Henson is truly a great razor. It'll last you a lifetime. You'll get a better shave with less irritation, and you'll also save money in the long run. So head over to hensonshaving.com/Veritasium or scan the QR code here and enter code Veritasium for 100 free blades with the purchase of any razor. I want to thank Henson Shaving for supporting Veritasium, and I want to thank you for watching.
Good video. Thank you, Jinx. And I definitely watched Veritasium throughout the years. I loved a lot of the videos there too. Definitely got to subscribe there and go back.
This is a video.
Gotta have that thumbs up. Also to support, since watching on a stream, it's not going to count all of the viewers viewing this. Please make sure to go ahead and visit these guys. Any of the videos that we ever watch, check out their subscription, give them a thumbs up. I think this stuff is awesome. I suppose I'm still new to the idea or understanding how some of these sponsorships can work on these things, but I'd imagine at least watching through and at least putting up through some of the advertisement sections of these videos will help out as well. But that's all the videos I could see at the moment. Unless there's any... Nope. No other videos in the suggested content section just yet. But please feel free to drop by. Go ahead and put more of those in. The more we can learn, the better. I love this stuff. All right. Oh. All right, well, have a good one, Kai. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Suppose going through all of those videos, yeah, doing pretty good. Probably look like having maybe a little bit more time to play some Dragon's Dogma. Game is amazing. I want to keep playing more of it, but there's only so much time in the day. Your mother will nag you. Well, thank you once again for swinging by. Suppose for now I'm gonna change a few things here. At least update. Say they're gonna be starting Dragon's Dogma here on the stream. Still getting used to swapping and fixing this stuff. So forgive the scuff. Scuff will happen for a while. See you later, Kai. Let's see here. Funny thing is I changed this not too long ago, and now I've already forgotten how to change the content of the stream. Ah, there we go. There we go. Switching over to Dragon's Dogma.
I'm afraid I'm unfamiliar with the matter at hand. Perhaps we should have a more knowledgeable pawn join our party.
All right. Back to where we're at before. I'm trying to restrain myself from playing offline. I think I'm gonna have to. Here, I need to figure out what buttons are what. Gonna need to go back to town and probably get some camping supplies, because I definitely
Freshly
found that...
rested
Whoa!
as we are. This
Crap,
battle
what buttons
ought
are
to
what?
be in our favor.
I forgot!
We must not let down our guard. Douse the flames before it is too late.
I love how brutal they can be with these two.
That was well fought. There's no one standing who might say otherwise.
No doubt this triumph will spur us into the next. I'm afraid I'm unfamiliar with the matter at hand. Perhaps we should have a more knowledgeable pawn join our party.
Have any of you played this game yet?
Weapons are simple enough to procure if we've the coin, but we might be lucky enough to find some in treasure chests.
You have my support.
Yep, or
Now
Seeker's
here's a
tokens.
surprise.
Kind
A
of figured.
splendid discovery.
They're hiding it out of the reach places.
I'll have to remember to tell my own master about this.
You're gonna play this vicariously through me? Is this the type of game that you would play? Yeah, definitely took a roundabout. I love these types of games, just kind of wandering around, doing whatever. It can be totally pointless. But still like it. Oh yeah, that's right. I came across this one before.
Have you forgotten something, Arisen? You're looking rather lost. Let us see what you're made of.
They took care of that in a hurry. There we go. Yeah, if they're not good with fire, let's definitely give the archer some fire.
I lack information pertinent to this task. Consider hiring a pawn better apprised of such matters.
how long it takes some of the chests to refill or respawn, or if they even do.
We have found a material.
Different combinations of materials result in different creations. Come to think of it, different masters favor different pawns. One whom I served preferred to have beastrons for allies.
Each to their own.
I find goods for sale. Well met.
Oh boy. That's worth a fair bit.
Much obliged.
Basic stuff there, but no camping
Not buying?
equipment.
That's just as well.
What
Better
if
to be
that's an
selective than
inn?
wasteful.
Or some other
Browsing was enough
portion
to
of town.
scratch the itch, in my case.
Wait, oop. Pardon me.
I've beds to spare if you're looking for lodgings. And if you'd like to change your
Oh,
vocation,
storage, yes.
come see me anytime.
Let's deposit. I don't think I need all of these things. Probably for sailing. Oh, no, I don't. You know what? Actually, when something's expired, I wonder if it isn't used for something else. Ah, they do have a camping kit. Oh, yes. I forgot about this. It would be very beneficial for me to remember to buy him more skills. Okay, fire, frostbite, conscious sleep, silence, drenched, tarred. I wonder if there's a different one for, like, poison or anything. Put that in there. Let's see. Springboard up you go. I think that'd be fairly beneficial. Honestly, I think that in combination with one of the other melees. If the warrior is able to springboard and get the, I believe it's the rogue, up there on something's shoulders for it to stab a lot of, more quickly and hit a vital spot, I think that'll be far better. I don't think that's how falling in gravity works. I think most tanks in video games would be very jealous of this ability. Oh no, I'm gonna fall to my death. Here, let me just block the damage with my shield. I wonder, do you equip each of these, or do you just get them? Oh, augmentations. I forgot about those. Huh.
Tis good to be busy. Work begets opportunity. Do come again.
I'll carefully conserve my strength and endeavor to survive every battle by way of sound strategy and defensive tactics.
Nah.
I've got wares of every ilk.
Let's see what you got. Ah, you're the one with the packs. See who knows.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Let's hand off these heavy suckers over to somebody else who cares.
Most sensible, Master. You'll be able to move much more freely with a lighter pack.
I think trying to find some things to kill and leveling up a little bit more will be beneficial before trying to kill one of those ogres. I'm still very tempted to try.
Weapons are simple enough to procure if we have the coin. But we might be lucky enough to find some in treasure chests.
It is no great shock to me.
I should have taken that turn earlier.
I'm afraid I'm unfamiliar with the matter at hand. Perhaps we should have a more knowledgeable pawn join our party.
Hey, you're just another pawn out on the road, right?
I shall be proud to serve you, Arisen.
Nope. You are the only one here. But I'm still talking to any future audiences.
But hold a moment. Methinks I espy a way through.
No sense letting the enemy gain the upper hand. The early griffin gets the worms, as they say. Flip master, goblins!
We have no means of exploiting our enemy's weakness.
Yep, I'm reading whenever I can.
Come to think of it,
It'd be honestly better if I did try to read more often. But it's a skill I'm trying to enhance, I guess.
Own our skills. A jack of all trades is a master of none.
One of us is being drenched! I cannot fall to prowess.
Come, hold the legs up.
My current eyes are the only eyes that I have, but it's not to say that I can't make something new. After all, I am the core in the chest. So, my physiology or other characteristics can always change. New appearances in the future. Types of things. You know.
protect you.
Tremendous work!
Once more! Another statue? Mayhap 'twill yield us all to view.
Why don't we go take a look?
Weapons are simple enough to procure if we have the coin. But we might be lucky enough to find some in treasure chests.
'Tis as you say.
Use me as your foothold to soar to greater heights.
So close. Yes. Next time for sure.
Forgive me for being a burden.
Look out, Arisen! We're under attack!
Our foe stumbles. Just one more push ought to... Bring it down.
Strike fast and true, and our quarry shall fall!
Oh, worthy of caution. Lord save our best will do.
True enough.
We must rally. Panic will only play to the enemy's advantage. Thank you. I am in your debt.
Would seem our foe is unbalanced.
There is no better time to strike.
The moment of victory is at hand. Let us finish this.
I am sorry.
Do not give up hope. Help will come. seems we have enraged our foe.
A reckless opponent makes for easy prey.
By I lack information pertinent to this.
Oh, well, that was epic.
Consider hiring a pawn better apprised of such matters.
Ah. Kind of wondering if playing games is just something that's going to be a little too early for me to keep doing for now. I should probably be playing games whenever I feel like I want to, and shift more over to the learning exercise types of things for now. Maybe game can be an occasional filler with a light side game or something. What do you think? I personally feel like as well when I have somebody else on a stream set to the side, if it's a game I'm wanting to play, I will mute the stream and keep them on the side to be a viewer. But I don't want to watch them play because I don't want to spoil the game for myself. So I think I might just kind of call it good with games.
Weapons are simple enough to
And I'll
procure
figure out
if
some more
we've the
things to
coin.
fill up time
But we might be lucky
with the
enough
stuff
to
we
find
did
some in
earlier.
treasure chests.
I truly felt like
You have my support.
earlier going over the videos, discussing things, reviewing over stuff, I felt happier with that. It seemed more engaging. No. I definitely love to play one of these games or stuff like that. But playing any of the unplayed games that I have, oh boy, there's just too many. And most of them I don't think I would feel quite so engaged. I definitely like to play something I enjoy. And a lot of people do play or have their streams oriented around playing those hard to find games or little played, which I do like to play a few of those, but maybe something that I just do more on the side. That is quite a few games. I am actually unsure how many games I have on my unplayed list. I'll have to take a look sometime. But I kind of wonder, maybe for now, I'll just probably call it good with this. We can raid someone, and then I'll try to see about finding some more videos and stuff for us to go over next time. I think finding more topics that way to discuss is a lot more engaging. Too many of the games if I'm gonna play them, I'm gonna be concentrating on that. I could look over at chat, but I don't think it's gonna be worth talking about. Yes. Good discussion. Thank you. Yes. It's me for now. We'll go back to here. And let's see who we can raid. Oh, I know just the person I want to raid. Evan. I've watched him
stumbling your
a
words
bit
on
more
it.
so lately and just kind of been talking with him more.
Normal thing.
I know he's kind of big, but at the same time, he's only got 60 viewers, so
I feel like
let's just add a couple to the list.
Right? You know?
I just vibe, baby.
I know there's suicide virus. Are you awake right now? Yo, it's 4:30. I'm gonna go to bed.
So let's see here.
What? Is that you?
I need to...
Wait, no, my chat's fucking with me. Oh god.
Huh?
I hate you all so much.
All right.
Shut the
Have a good one.
up, chat.
See you next time tomorrow. Same time.
Your money was worth it trolling me. God damn it.
Money is money.
That is true. Money is actually money today. I'm very grateful. Well, how do you feel about women with 3 boobs?